Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have your doubts, not what I'm about, have your fucking cloud, it be raining now. I keep making sound, go another round, bitch I'm legend bound, can't stop me now. You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease.
What is going on, everyone? And in this video I'll be giving you my UFC Vegas 57 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, June 25th, 2022 at the UFC Apex facility in Enterprise, Nevada. This is going to be definitely for the hardcore fans. Most people aren't even going to know the main event. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably know the main event, but I would say the majority of people that watch UFC on the casual side, you know, they're not talking about this main event. But I do think this main event is like one of the most solid main events that we've had. Gonna be very competitive. Arman, Tsarukyan versus Maeteusz, Gamrot. That's gonna be a pretty solid fight. Co-main event, Magny taking on Shavkat, Rakhmonov. Also a pretty solid fight. So I do think there's some little bit of sprinkles here on this card that are going to be solid. Overall, it might not be a memorable card outside of the main event necessarily, or maybe even the co-main event. But either way, I'd like to see them do more fight nights. We obviously saw how that went in front of a live crowd at UFC Austin. So solid of a card. Like, it was one of the best cards. A lot of good finishes. I think it tied for like the most finishes or something like that. And so it was a really solid card. Really needed that too, because some of these previous cards, they weren't really the best. Didn't really stand out, but this one was pretty intense, right? We were getting a lot of finishes, and that's what we like to see. And we even good fights, just solid fights also. Even the main event, although there was no finish, it was a pretty competitive fight, pretty close fight. Cater didn't get the split decision victory, but it could have went either way, really realistically. So I don't think either of them got their ass beat necessarily. It was just a really good fight. Went 8-5, so a lot better than a lot of the other cards that I've been predicting. So that's good to see. Let's see if we can kind of stay up on that track and get it even a little bit better on this card. We'll have to see, but either way, solid card, great fights. Move on to this one. Hopefully there's great fights as well. It'd be tough to follow, especially with one where the names aren't necessarily going to be there, but I do hope that it'll be a good card. So we'll go ahead and jump in to the first fight. So in the first fight on the main card, we have Chris Action Man Curtis taking out Rodolfo Vieira. 28-8 for Chris Curtis, 8-1 for Rodolfo Vieira. So obviously the experience is going to go to Curtis for this one, but the ground game experience will go to Vieira. So when you look at someone like Chris Curtis, I would say, all three of his fights are all by finish, but he doesn't necessarily have like the best volume, right? I think he, his significant landing per minute is 7.21, absorb per minute 6.64, but that seems kind of distorted because he's not necessarily like constantly throwing or anything like that. He definitely has some big power that I think he tries to load up on, but at the same time he's not really like getting sloppy with it. Against Phil Hawes, he really wasn't doing anything. It wasn't like he was eating damage either, though. I mean, he was getting hit, but he wasn't earlier in the match against Phil Hawes. But at the same time, he wasn't doing anything, and he wasn't like absorbing too much damage to where like he was getting his ass beat. And then he clips him, and then he puts him away. Even against Brendan Allen, he did a little bit more. I think he got a little bit more active, obviously. 61 strikes in comparison to 21. But even in that fight, it wasn't like he was, super aggressive, putting together all the combinations, getting in his face. Like, it really wasn't like that. He kind of just waited, stayed composed, was trying to take advantage of the counters, and then eventually clipped Brendan Allen and put him down. So he doesn't get crazy. He really does pick his shots. He takes his time. He stays in range. That's another thing. He'll definitely stay in the range to swing. He's not really afraid of that. Pretty solid chin. And yeah, good defense, good striking defense. If really I could say anything is if somebody's able to start really fast on him, maybe he'd struggle, but I don't think Vieira is going to be that guy who's like going to get in his face right off the bat and start trying to tee him up. And I don't really see that happening, right? I kind of see Vieira willing to trade with him a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe just go instantly for the takedown. And so I don't really think Vieira is going to threaten with like aggression necessarily. The other thing too with Vieira being a little bit more, just being a lot better in the ground game, Curtis is gonna have to watch out for like overextending, loading up on some big shots and then getting taken down. If he even gets taken down, we have to see how his takedown defense holds up and whether or not, we saw Vieira as well in some of his fights where he gets these takedowns, but with all the energy he's trying to do to get the takedowns, he starts to get a little bit tired. And someone like against Chris Curtis, maybe Curtis will get a little bit tired. I mean, we haven't really gotten to see that, but I would assume if Vieira is going for all the takedowns and Curtis is able to defend him, Curtis might start to piece him up as soon as he gets tired. And it's only going to take a couple shots, right? Because Curtis can definitely just lay it down on you. So for Vieira, all three of his wins are by inside of the UFC are by submission. So obviously the danger there is that he gets him to the ground, and then we get to see what he's doing. But again, like I said, his striking is decent, but I really do think Vieira's gonna have to get this one to the ground because Curtis isn't really someone that you want to just start trading in the pocket with. I really don't feel that's like gonna go well for Vieira. You could always clip him, but I just don't think overall that'll be good for him. In his last fight against Dustin Stolfus, he was a little bit more patient in getting the takedowns. I think he kept the fight standing until like he needed to go for the takedowns, which maybe was just because so he can conserve his energy to get those takedowns. He did win that fight. He won it by submission. So he is dangerous on the floor. It's not some guy you want to be tired against and then get taken down. But I just think early on, if Curtis, doesn't start so slow, and if he gets in Vieira's face and starts landing these big shots, defends the takedowns, I just feel like it's his fight to lose. Unless we see him start to gas or he just makes like one of the biggest mistakes, like he overextends and just gets double legged to the floor or gets backpacked or something like that. But I just think overall, if Curtis doesn't start slow, stays in his face, gets the aggression, just lands the better shots, because I think he's the harder hitter and I think he's probably the better striker as well. I think he'll be able to put Vieira away. But then at the same time, maybe Vieira does get to take him down, waste some time, and then so it's more of just like Curtis kind of just trying not to get the fight to the ground, but doing enough on the feet to where he's like piecing him up and whatnot. And maybe he does get a little bit tired. So I actually won't take him by finish because I think Vieira, I feel like he could stall the fight too, right? You could get him against the fence and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go Chris Curtis. I just think he's gonna land the better strikes, defend the takedowns. If he does get pressed against the fence, I feel like he can get off the fence. And then maybe he gets a finish, but maybe he kind of just does enough to like get this one to the decision. So I'm gonna go Chris Curtis to defeat Rodolfo Vieira. I'll take him to win by a decision. In the second fight on the main card, we have Nate Mayhem Maness taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. 14-1 for Maness, 14-0 for Nurmagomedov, and obviously Nurmagomedov is going to be the cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov. So this fight is a really interesting fight because I think on paper, just by name, just by the Russians, the grappling, we kind of know what we're gonna get, right? Or at least that's what we think. But for this one, you have someone in Maness who he's not necessarily the best guy, but he's got 3 wins inside the UFC, and 2 of those, one of those wins is by a rear naked choke. The first one was by decision, and then the last one he TKO'd Tony Gravely. And Maness, I don't think he's going to be able to defend the takedowns, at least early on against Nurmagomedov. But I do think if Maness is able to survive early, he might be a problem as the fight goes on. But at the same time, like he almost died, like against, was it against? Yeah, even against Tony Gravely, like he almost died after the first round. I mean, he basically would have been knocked out, so that was kind of sketch. He does have fast hands, good power. His striking is patient. He's not necessarily brawling. He's not getting wild. Solid takedown defense. Yeah, he definitely has some pretty good takedown defense. But again, against someone like Nurmagomedov, is that going to really matter, right? Everyone has good takedown defense until they fight a guy who can take him down. So for me, I would say, like, let's see what we can get out of Nurmagomedov, right? Let's see if we can take him deep. Let's see if we can hurt him a little bit because he's finishable. He's only had 2 fights. First one is against Sergey Morozov, and then the second one was against Brian Kelleher. And not to knock Brian Kelleher, but it's not like he's on, he's kind of like a gatekeeper, so it's not necessarily a good indication of what he's going to be able to do. So this is a really interesting fight because I think I would take Nurmagomedov to probably maul him on the floor, Like, get the fight, because his striking, it's pretty good, nasty kicking game. I mean, Nurmagomedov could kick him in the head and put him to sleep, but I do think more likely it's just the pressure, getting him on the floor, and finding a way to a submission. Now, if Gravely can keep the fight standing, take it to a little bit deep waters, see if he can get into an awkward exchange, clip him in there. If Maness can clip Nurmagomedov, it could alter the entire fight, right? So Maness is gonna have to create that mayhem, just like his nickname. He's got to get in there. He's got to pressure. He can't just accept getting taken down, right? He's got to stay in his face. Give us something different. Like, don't just be that guy who's like going for those big shots and then like he double legs you, ducks under, takes it down, submits you, right? You got to do something different, but it's gonna be hard. And Nurmagomedov is probably working on his hand speed. He's working on his striking. His wrestling's already there. Nurmagomedov, but he can't get sloppy, right? He shouldn't start trading with Maness, because obviously I think Maness is gonna want to trade with him, and that'll be a little bit sketch. But between Maness basically getting knocked out in his last fight, and he just finds a way to win. I'm just not confident in doing that. I'm more confident with Nurmagomedov. That being said, I think Nurmagomedov is a pretty big favorite, and I guess a guy who's willing to spoil the party might not be the safest thing to take. But yeah, I like. I think it'll be an interesting test for both of these guys, but I do like Nurmagomedov, and I think if he can pretty dominantly like shut this fight down, close it out, get to submission, I think that'll be a good indication, at least for me, that this is, Nurmagomedov is definitely in this one, and he's gonna be pretty dominant. So we'll have to see how it goes, but yeah, I mean, Maness is gonna have to clip him. Like, that's about it. Like, I don't think he's doing anything else. Yeah, he's gonna have to do something different, get aggressive, clip him, maybe get Nurmagomedov to start trading with him, and then Maness might find some success. But I think if Nurmagomedov takes him down, implements that whole grappling thing to a submission, it's pretty much over. So I'm gonna go Umar Nurmagomedov to defeat Nate Maness. I'll take the win by submission in round number 1. In the third fight on the main card, we have Thiago Moises taking on Christos the Spark Giagos, and this is going to be a pretty decent matchup. Both fighters are coming off of a loss. With Moises, he's coming in off of a loss against Joel Alvarez, which he lost that fight via KO, TKO, and elbows. He pretty much got cut early in the fight and then just got dominated. Before that, he lost to Islam Makhachev. Pretty dominant loss. I guess he did get one takedown, but eventually he was submitted. Ironically enough, though, he does have wins over Alexander Hernandez, Bobby Green, Michael Johnson. So he has fought some pretty good guys. He lost to Beneil Dariush. He's fought the best guys, if you think about it, in the lightweight division. So that's something to keep an eye on. His striking, definitely not the best, right? He's got pretty good heavy shots, big hooks, but it's kind of limited to that. He's not necessarily putting it together too well. He's kind of loading up big on his shots. We even saw that against Joel Alvarez. Like, he was loading up too much on his shots, and it was easily countered and just kind of taken care of through. Just Alvarez had the better striking, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really competitive. Like, Moises was kind of banking on just loading up on one big knockout, landing a bomb, and then going for that. He has pretty solid leg kicks. He definitely has no problem backing up against the fence because he's trying to land a big counter. And that's kind of, against a better striker, that's kind of a problem because you're not really going to have that opportunity because they're always going to get out of the way and they'll take advantage of you kind of overextending on loading up on those shots. Moises, he could probably go to the grappling in this fight. I know, let's see, Giagos has he has 52% takedown defense. He goes for takedowns of his own. So it'll be interesting to see here who's going to have the better grappling. But I do think Moises is probably going to have the better grappling, and Giagos might not be diving in for takedowns at the risk of getting submitted by Moises. But I do think maybe if Giagos can keep the fight standing, although his stand-up is kind of chalk too, right? It's not really the best. Giagos is another one of these guys. He's been in the division for a long time. Lost to Oliveira, Tsarukyan, Burns. So he's also fought a lot of these guys too. Lost to pretty much everyone that was at the top level, but he at least he did get some fight in there, and he does have some. He's credited with some from takedowns in these fights. He took down Damir Hadzovic 6 times. Carlton minus 5 times, Sean Soriano 3 times. So yeah, he's definitely one of those guys. But I think where he lacks is his striking, and it does get a little bit wild. He's willing to kind of just brawl a little bit and just start swinging out there, and that's where I think Moises is going to be able to clip him, put him down, and then definitely go for the finish here. Now maybe it doesn't happen in the first round. Maybe the first round's a little bit of a feel outer kind of thing, because neither guy wants to go crazy and get submitted early on, right? Because if Giagos is trying to take Moises down and then he gets submitted, that's not going to be the best thing. And then, if Moises is going in for something crazy and Giagos catches him, or even catches him in a submission, although I don't see that happening, that's not going to be good. But I do think in the second round, Moises might be able to find his range a little bit. Stay relaxed, clip him. I'm just not confident Giagos in this one not getting clipped, especially if he starts getting a little too wild, right? I think Moises is going to be able to put him away. So I'm going to go Thiago, Moises. I think he takes out Christos, Giagos. I'll take him to win in round 2, KO, TKO. In the fourth fight on the main card, we have Josh Parisian, 14-5, taking on Alan the Black Samurai. Baudot, 8-4. This is going to be one hell of a... This is either going to be a quick fight or it's going to be one hell of a sloppy fight. I'm more inclined to think it'll be a sloppy fight until it's just over. Both guys, definitely not the best guys in the division. Far from it. No offense. I mean, they'll knock me out cold. But this is not going to be top tier. This is like the classic heavyweight fight where you've got two guys that are, they're really going to just gas out if they can't finish each other. And then at the same time, the striking is just like phone booth fighting where, whoever gets clipped first wins. And it's just not the best look. But Parisian, I can't see either of these guys fighting for a title or something like that. Like if either of these guys fought Cyril Gane, for example, it would just be over. If they fought Francis Ngannou, it'd be over. So for Parisian, he's coming into this fight with a loss over Dontel Mays. He got KO, TKO'd in the third round by elbows. He beat Rogue Martinez by split decision, but he was still getting pieced up in that fight. He lost to Parker Porter, so both of them lost to Parker Porter. Nothing really crazy, kind of just just both of these guys can be hit. The one thing I will say, at least early on, though, I think Baudot is probably going to be the better striker until he's gassing out and his striking kind of goes to shit. I think it'll be the cleaner, better striking, but not by much. And at the same time, he's going to really have to do something early on because he did have a little bit of a resurgence in his last fight in the third round against Parker Porter. But, you can't be doing that in the third round within the last couple minutes. So Baudot's really going to have to do something early on. I think he'll have the speed advantage. He's trying to land uppercuts, lands knees in close. And Parisian, I'm not too sure Parisian's going to want to trade in close against a guy like this, right? Parisian definitely has a good kicking game, but, to implement a kicking game, he's going to have to keep that distance. But he will brawl inside, right? He'll get crazy with it. Pretty solid jab. Yeah, like I said, good kicks to the body, to the head. But I do think Parisian, if he's the one getting backed up against the fence, he kind of turtles a little too much. And, if Baudot's not tired by then and he's piecing him up, I can kind of see him getting stopped on the feet, TKO'd on the feet. Both guys are heavyweights, so, either one of these dudes can land on each other and then it's over, or it just changes the fight. Got one guy just get rocked. Maybe a Parisian tries to go in for the takedown. That could be a thing against someone like Baudot. I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to get a takedown on him. And then from there, it'd be kind of stupid because I think Baudot's not going to get back up, and maybe he does. This just depends on when it happens, I guess. So, yeah, overall, this is kind of a sketchy fight. It's like a 50-50, whoever gets clipped first, whoever gasses out after the first 2 minutes kind of thing. It's just up in the air. But I'm going to go Alan Baudot because you really got to think, I know both of these guys are going to be if I don't win this fight, it's probably over. Maybe more so for Baudot because he's coming off of 3 losses. So I'm hoping that Baudot has a little bit of a sense of urgency. He tries to just do what he was doing in the third round against Parker Porter, but in the first couple minutes in the second round or something, and not wait until the last minute. So Because if he can pressure Parisian early on, get in his face, start teeing off on him against the fence, and he's kind of just turtling, they might stop it, do one of those standing TKO things. Even if Parisian isn't necessarily badly hurt, I could just see Baudot trying to tee off on him. So I'm gonna go Alan Baudot on this one. Not really confident. I mean, I don't think you can be confident in this fight. It's one of those ones where after it happens, you're like, oh yeah, of course. But yeah, one of these guys is going to get destroyed. So I'll go Alan Baudot to defeat Josh Parisian. I'll take him to win by KO TKO in round number 2. In the 5th fight on the main card, we have Neil the Haitian Sensation Magny taking on Shavkat Nomad Rakhmonov. 26-9 for Magny, 15-0 for Rakhmonov. So this is obviously going to be a classic gatekeeper match, whether or not we get to see one guy move up to the next echelon of people that he can fight, or we see him kind of just disappear, maybe come back later, and then Neil Magny's just kind of still like, oh, I'm not letting you in this time. So we'll have to see what happens. But I do think Magny is a tough bastard. Like, we all know that. Like, Magny's that guy you got to beat at this in this division to really get to that next level. So that being said, it's not necessarily going to be an easy fight. Maybe it is an easy fight for him. We just have to see. So Neil Magny's coming off of a win over Max Griffin via split decision. Wasn't the cleanest of fights. Magny was credited with 1 takedown. Griffin was credited with 1 knockdown. He definitely got clipped in that fight. And that's something to look out for, right? Against someone like Rakhmonov is... man, I could just see Rakhmonov just having way too much speed and aggression and just piecing him up, setting up something like a spinning kick to the dome, or even just landing his strikes, big power shots early on and just kind of overwhelming him, attacking Magny's lead leg. It's kind of a problem Magny has, right? He kind of stands on that leg. We saw that way back in the day. Who was it against? Lorenz Larkin, where Lorenz Larkin was able to kind of kick the shit out of him. Yeah, that could happen again. Maybe not at that level, but I do think those legs are definitely... they're gonna be hit by Rakhmonov, and we'll have to see what he's able to do with it. Before that, he won against Jeff Neal, unanimous decision, 2 takedowns credited. Again, not the most exciting fight. He lost to Michael Chiesa, 4 takedowns for Chiesa. He kind of got out-grappled in that one, but just a low volume fight, like 12 strikes in that one. He's kind of averaging, I would say, probably under, at least 60 strikes, 70 strikes. But he's dangerous in the fact that, like, he can go for submission. His cardio is, he's one of these guys that can keep going and going, and you don't really have to worry about him slowing down. So we haven't really seen that out of Rakhmonov. If he gets in a not necessarily a troubled position, but just if he's not able to put Magny away, does he start to gas out a little bit, and Magny's able to kind of come back, even if Magny early on is kind of getting smashed out. But it is a 3-round fight, so we'll have to judge Rakhmonov's cardio, because he hasn't really been able to be tested. Rakhmonov's first fight inside the UFC was against Alex Oliveira, which is a pretty damn good win, because that was the first round submission victory. Now, granted, Oliveira has lost his past 4 fights, but it's definitely a name. And then he beat Michel Perez, who is a veteran in the game in his own right, and he lost to him. And of all things, he got submitted by Rakhmonov, right? So he wasn't losing via submission. If anything, he was going for the submissions. So for Rakhmonov to submit him like that, it's a pretty decent win. Carlston Harris, he defeated him in that fight. That was a pretty good win as well. Not that Harris is the best guy in the world, but he was no slouch. So I would say those are pretty solid wins. And for Rakhmonov, he just is able to... He's one of these guys that's kind of coming under the radar. And we'll really just have to see how he performs with the cardio, whether or not he's able to keep doing the same stuff to a guy who's like a gatekeeper. Because I think if he runs through Neil Magny, it's going to be interesting to see who they give him next. But yeah, I just think Rakhmonov's going to be able to be way too aggressive early on for Neil Magny. And yeah, Neil Magny will try to survive, but I definitely see Rakhmonov clipping him. And whether or not, though, Rakhmonov dives in for like a submission and then gets reversed or something like that, I think it would be more smart for Rakhmonov to just try to go for that finish, get that TKO instead of a submission. So I'm looking for Shavkat to get in his face early on, be aggressive, put together those speed combinations, attack the lead leg of Magny, don't let this fight get to the third round. Don't let this fight get to the second round. Just go after him early on. Be aggressive. Be like, hey, I'm here, and let's get it. I'm not gonna let you just kind of take over the fight later when I start to gas out a little bit. So he may not go for anything flashy, because this is not the time for that. Maybe he does. Maybe like spinning back kicks him to the head again or something like that. But I do think Shavkat will win. So I'm gonna go Shavkat Rakhmonov to defeat Magny. I'll take him to win by KO TKO in round number 1. In the main event of the evening, we have Arman. Not gonna butcher that. Tsarukyan taking on Maeteusz, Gamrot. What is that? Kalalkets. Okay. Yeah, let's not do that again. Okay, so 18-2 for Tsarukyan, 20-1, 1-no contest for Gamrot, and this is gonna be a pretty good fight. I think both guys are coming off some pretty good victories here. Although I do think Tsarukyan is, he's a tough outing for anyone. Both of these guys really are. But Tsarukyan, ever since he lost to Makhachev, if you think about it, if you really think about it, like everyone's losing to Makhachev, it's like, okay, it makes sense, right? It's like you gotta fight Makhachev to lose to him, and then like you have this career resurgence and be like, oh shit, that's the top. So I gotta get back to that, right? So, Tsarukyan coming off a win over Joe Alvarez, round 2 KO TKO, killed him pretty much, took him down. And pretty much killed him. Christos, Giagos, KO TKO, clipped him, put him down, finished him. Beat Matt Frevola via unanimous decision. 10 takedowns against Matt Frevola. So he's definitely capable of getting those grappling and going together, and the wrestling, putting you on the floor. Beat Davi Ramos, credited 1 takedown in that unanimous decision. Beat Olivier Aubin Mercier, 2 takedowns in that fight, unanimous decision victory. So yeah, I mean, this guy is, granted, he did get 1 takedown against Makhachev. 13 strikes landed for him against Makhachev's 14, but Makhachev had more takedowns. So yeah, I would say that's pretty decent, right? He didn't get finished, and that was his first fight inside the UFC. I mean, who wants to get welcomed by Makhachev in their first fight in the UFC? He ended up becoming basically almost a champion, so he'll be fighting for the title hopefully soon. So this is a pretty good record, and his wrestling is second to none. But whether or not Gamrot's gonna be able to defend those takedowns, and that's another thing too, right? Because Gamrot, he's definitely capable of getting on the floor, but he's gonna be throwing up submissions, or he'll be trying to reverse position to get those submissions, and he's a grappler in his own right. So I'm not so sure the fight gets thrown to the ground early on. This might be one of those things where it doesn't get there unless someone gets dropped, or maybe one of them gets tired and tries to go for the takedown late to kind of close out a decision victory or something like that. But I'm not so sure that happens early on. So with that, it's going to be a stand-up fight. And for me, you have Gamrot defeating Diego Vieira, KO TKO via knee, round number 2. Beat Jeremy Stevens via submission. That was pretty quick, though. He took him down. Defeated Scott Holtzman via KO TKO in round number 2. Got 2 takedowns in that one. Lost to Garam Kutaladze via split decision. This is an interesting fight because, against Diego Vieira, he was kind of beating him up. 4 takedowns. That's solid. But like I said, I don't think he's going to be taking Tsarukyan down like that. So I do think Tsarukyan is going to have better striking on the feet. I think he can do a lot of, he's pretty fast, man. He can damage, good speed and power. His jab is pretty snappy, solid body kicks. He's very tactical. Again, he's not one of these guys loading up on his shots, trying to brawl. He's definitely trying to pick his shots. The one thing though is if Gamrot's able to become aggressive towards him, maybe that throws off Tsarukyan's game a little bit. We saw Frevola landed some pretty good shots and kind of wobbled him in their fight. And that was when he was pressuring Tsarukyan against the fence. So I would advise for Gamrot to come out aggressive, stay in his face. The cardio, though, for both these guys, I don't think we have to worry about it. Gamrot, maybe if he's trying to get in those takedowns. See, that's the thing. I don't know if he's going to go for the takedowns like that because he was starting to get a little bit tired. I think, for example, like against Kutaladze, right? Granted, this was in 2020, his first fight inside the UFC. But even in that fight, I think he started to get a little bit tired. But that's just the wrestling. I don't really think it was too much. Gamrot's technical too, right? He's not loading up on shots. He's trying to be a little bit versatile, mix in stuff. He's not loading. He doesn't get sloppy, right? He's not brawling or anything. Like, neither of these guys is a brawler. And it'll be interesting if Gamrot's able to get this fight to the ground, if it does go to the ground. Good hand speed, good at dodging strikes, getting the takedowns after he dodges the strikes too, switching the levels. So yeah, I think the biggest thing here is Gamrot's gonna have to pressure early on, get aggressive, stay in Tsarukyan's face, make him be like, oh shit, like my strike, I need to go in for the takedowns, right? Because the striking here, I don't know if that's gonna happen. I think Tsarukyan's probably gonna have the better striking, but I guess Gamrot can try. We'll have to see, right? And yeah, I think Gamrot more than Tsarukyan is probably going to try to rely on the grappling just because he knows maybe I could get a submission if it goes there. So let's say he's getting pieced up on the feet too badly by Tsarukyan and Tsarukyan is just having his way with him. I think that's when you start to see Gamrot go in for the takedowns. But I think it'll be it might be a quiet fight early on just because they both have similar skill sets in the sense of, both guys are really good grapplers. Tsarukyan probably has the better striking just by a little bit, but it might just be a striking match for like a good while. So I could see this fight going 5 rounds and not being the most exciting fight. I don't know if it'll be a war. Maybe it will be a war, but I think it'll be a close fight and it's another like split decision. Unless one of these guys is able to implement like, oh shit, I have the better wrestling, or oh, your striking is not as good as mine, then I think it's a close fight because I just think they're evenly matched, which is why it's a really good fight and which is why I'm really excited for it. Pretty good records for both guys, 21, 18-2. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing who wins, but I'm gonna have to side with Arman Tsarukyan just because, this guy's fought some pretty decent people inside the UFC. He's coming off 5 wins. First fight was against Makhachev, so he's legit, right? He's definitely legit. He wants to get back to that Makhachev fight and see what he can do against him. And that's not to discredit Gamrot, but at least inside of the UFC, this is going to be Gamrot's toughest competition, whereas Arman was able to face his toughest competition in his first fight in the UFC. So I think it's a quiet fight until maybe something crazy happens, but I think it's a competitive fight, and I'm going to go ahead and choose Arman Tsarukyan to defeat Maeteusz Gamrot. I'll take the win by a pretty close decision. And so that'll do it, guys, for my UFC Vegas 57 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday. Looking forward to it. June 25th, 2022. Leave your comments down below. Hit the subscribe button. And you know what? I'll see you guys in the next video.